Again, I'm Karen Caravani, Chair, SAC Region 1. I would like to make a motion to approve tonight's agenda on August 14th.
I second.
I'll make a motion.
And then a second.
Yeah.
Okay, and all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Okay, so next up is recognition of the committee, and we have Vincent Molden from the County Executive's Office. Stands wherever you go.
In the center.
The owl will see you.
Oh, okay. I know the house sees me, but I saw that webcam. I'll turn this way. Good evening, everyone. I'm Vincent Molden, the Director of Community Engagement Constituent Services for County Executive Stuart Pittman, who could not be here tonight, so you're stuck with me, sorry. If you read his weekly newsletter, you would have saw he's in Norway with his family, which I learned is the 7th happiest place on earth or something like that. So you can learn all about it tomorrow if you subscribe to his newsletter, because he will be writing about it. But I know if you were here, he will want to thank all of the SAC members for your commitment to this process and for all that you do, and for uplifting the voices of the community. You're helping to shape the future of our county, in particular the communities in Region 1. So thank you for all of your hard work. And so we have citations to commemorate your work during this process. I'm going to read a citation and leave the name blank at first. But then when I call your name, please come and get your citation. So the citation reads, the residents of Anne Arundel County, Maryland salute, insert name, and recognition of your commitment to Anne Arundel County's Region 1 process. As a member of the Stakeholder Advisory Committee for the region, you have selflessly volunteered your time and expertise to create a vision for a healthy, livable, and vibrant community for all. We are grateful for your input that will continue to shape our communities for years to come. We commend you and wish you the best for all your future endeavors. Thank you for helping to make Anne Arundel County the best place for all. So first we have Sean Venus. Yes. Then Maureen Mo Bryant. Derek Demby. Not here. Corey Fenwick.
He's here virtually, so.
Right. Danny Marcel. He's not here. Nicole Jean. Joan. Aaron. Jim Lucas. Please take the podium. Daniel McGinty. Okay. Jennifer Shields. And then Mary Lee Tortorelli. Do we want to do one group photo for my newsletter that comes out?
Why don't we do it at the end?
Oh, at the end.
Or I think cheers or something like that.
Thanks, Vincent. Okay, so jumping right into it here, we have 2 goals for tonight here at our last meeting. We're going to be looking to, as you all, the SAC, recommend approval of the draft zoning map So in doing so, as you know, we had a public comment period last month. And during that period, obviously, we received public comments, but there was also an opportunity for property owners to submit applications for their property again. So we'll review a couple of those as well. So like I said, recommend approval of the draft zoning map, and then we'll get into the draft Region 1 plan, which you have in front of you. If you don't have a copy, I've got a couple more up here just for SAC members. I can collect those at the end. And again, looking for you all to recommend approval of that so that we can then go to our next step here with the Planning Advisory Board, and I can provide some additional detail on that step here at the end of the meeting. Okay, so we'll start with the draft maps and go over some public comment then on properties that received some of the most significant feedback. And like I said, go over a couple applications. So again, we like to move through the region by going through our, breaking it down a little bit more, going through our communities, which includes Hanover and Farmington to start with, and then we'll move over to Lincoln, Ferndale, Brooklyn Park, Ferguson. So generally here, big picture, starting at the north, in that Ridge Road sort of industrial area, we heard from property owners, there are current development applications that have been submitted to the county. We don't want to move the goalpost while those applications are being reviewed by the county. So we're going to make a recommendation to remove or carve out those properties. And I'll get into some of these in a little more detail. A couple of properties that had submitted an application for rezoning, we'll look to potentially recommend that those go to W2 is what the applicant wanted. Down in the Harbins area, we heard during our drop-in sessions, many of the property owners came and they said, hey, look, there's a lot of conflict between our industrial uses and some of the residential land to the south. And then we had also talked about the Queenstown community to the south. That also spans into Region 3, just to the south, and they're recommending residential zoning district, changing that from an industrial zoning district to a residential as well. So again, starting off here with this one area I'll talk about, right, is so everywhere where there was this diagonal line is where there was the recommendation to change to MXDT during our preliminary draft. What the Office of Planning and Zoning is now recommending is shrinking that area here just to the north. And we've talked to MDOT, they're okay with their property being rezoned in MXDT. But again, the idea here was carving off some of these southern and western parcels where there may be development applications. So again, looking for your all's recommendation as we move forward with this draft. Any concerns? Yeah, so the airport is just to the south or southeast over here. This is the BWI Mark station.
Oh,
And then there's this wetland system through here.
Mark,
Any concerns?
what, just a question, what was their reasoning behind changing our recommendation?
So again, it was, I'll start at the beginning too, is we identified, or we looked at the entire county and where there may be some public transportation hubs, right? So BWI Mark Station being one of those. And if there's an opportunity to create some type of mixed use development around there, because again, we hear a lot from the community that traffic is an issue.
Right.
So if you can locate more residential near these public transportation hubs, maybe that can encourage people to take public transportation. So that's why we initially looked at this larger area, roughly like a half-mile radius is typically standard for what you would want to, what people are willing to walk to or bike to potentially to get to a transit hub. And so that's why we started with this larger area. And then, like I said, as we heard from the property owners that said, hey, we've got a development application in under W1 zoning. I like to use the term, don't move the goalposts on us. And now the use that we had purchased the property with the understanding that what we could do on it. And now that we've submitted an application, now, you're telling us that we can't do that use. So we wanna respect that, and that's why I said, that's why we're recommending shrinking it to this red area.
So essentially avoiding a conflict of zoning, change, it's already been initiated.
But so is the development that they want all industrial?
It is industrial in nature, yeah.
Well,
Right. And so again, in MXDT, the use that have now actually proposed to the county via development application would not be limited.
Yeah, and they purchased a property with that.
And they've made that action to now
That's-
submit it.
yeah, it makes sense to preserve. Yeah.
Yeah.
As long as we get some good views for as humans, not by industry.
They want MXDT anyway.
Sorry,
MXDT.
the
They want W2.
developers here to the south that were carving off,
Oh, I got
they want W1
you. Got
or maintain
you.
W1.
Maintain.
Yeah, right.
Shouldn't be too different.
So there would be no recommended change for this area outside of the red.
Gotcha. Thanks, Mark.
Okay, any concerns there? Okay, if you don't mind, we can look at these two properties. Again, I can go back here to the larger scale here. And again, they're just off to the west of the airport. It's very industrial back in this area, warehousing, office parks, those types of uses back here. So looking at these two properties, the Office of Planning and Zoning initially recommended W1 for both. The SAC, you all had recommended W1 for this one, the left side, and W2 for this one. And again, it's now after further consideration, hearing from the property owners during the public comment period, we're revising our recommendation and to now W2, what the property owner is interested in for the property. So we can start with this one on the left-hand side. Again, your preliminary recommendation was W1. To keep it as W1. And the question is, do you want to change your recommendation to W2?
So, I mean, the reason why we want to do that is we want to have like a carve.
Yeah, so it is so W2 would be consistent with the planned land use, right? I don't think we would consider that spot zoning because it's a zoning district that's consistent with Plan 2040's planned land use.
Which is a little bit more heavy industry.
Yeah, and what we had heard too is, since this is somewhat revised, you can see that this had formerly been open space through a majority of that. You can see it better here on this one, right? And so the property owners indicated that most of the usable land is down in this corner, I believe. And so they really do see like a contractor's yard being most feasible or outdoor storage.
They're both light and industrial parks, so W1 versus W2 isn't that big of a jump. Okay.
I do recall when we were making decisions before we had to provide.
Justification.
Short
Right.
justification. It would be a little easier to know what those were. When you're asking if we should, we're okay with it. Unless you guys remember, I don't remember why we wanted.
Yeah.
I think like buffering, like, the distance, the heights of buildings. Yeah, it's different. I mean, that's
like,
really where the
structural stuff, not use.
Yeah,
We didn't
and
have like.
more.
I'm gonna counter that this was, kept W1 for conformity reasons. It's surrounded by W1.
Yeah,
Right.
And then the other property is right across the street from W2, which then would make more sense.
Yeah.
But honestly,
Right.
if it's all business park, it doesn't. I don't see an issue, especially if it's gonna be just a contractor's lot.
Were you saying something?
So again, here's the OPZ justification and at that time it was, you just agreed with our justification, so. But I think what Dan was saying is correct.
They're so close in everything, height, usage. It's not a big difference.
yeah.
Oh, you mean the code?
Yes.
Yeah, you could say, you know, like, somebody's difference.
Yeah.
It's really
Seems
just
like
like
the-
the height and.
And Mark, the change recommendation from OPZ was based on Plan 24, right?
And hearing some additional information from the property owner, again, just based on the environmental constraints, which they'll have to respect and avoid anyway. And the amount of usable space isn't enough to build, say, an office park on the property.
So remember, guys, it's a recommendation and they still have to go through a process. So if we allow their recommendation, I don't think that's gonna, you know, be a deterrent to, you know, not a deterrent person. They still have to go through the process.
I'm fine.
Thanks, Karen.
W2 is okay with this left-hand, or this parcel on the left-hand side. And then again, is the recommendation on the right-hand side for you all was W2 or Char Road property. Sorry. OPZ recommended, SAC recommended W2. So yes, unless you all want to bring it back to W1, then maintain that zoning designation. Again, the only reason office planning and zoning, why we're bringing that up tonight is just because we're changing our recommendations. All right, then moving down south to Hardin's, like I had mentioned, that many of the property owners in this area had come out to a drop-in session and they said that mixed-use zoning district probably doesn't make sense. That none of these property owners are looking to sell in the short term. There's already a little bit of conflict between the residential units here to the south and their uses to the north, where despite them being here for a few decades, they've had to change some of their operations, given the noise and other complaints from residences down here. So their thought was if there were to be a property owner or two that actually did sell and developed residential in this area, then that would create further conflict. And so their position is very much to stay as W2 in this area. And I think then even this area was recommended to go mixed use and keep this as W3. This is a well-established office park tucked away in the back. And probably not very well connected at the moment here to this northern industrial area. So again, this office planning and zoning's recommendation is to maintain the zoning in this area, just clean up some of those consistency changes. So again, maintain W2 for these properties, operating as industrial units, maintain this as W3 to the south.
Is that where the stone store?
That's right. Yeah.
There's like a tall.
That's up on the corner, correct? Yeah.
So originally,
84.
we were looking to match.
Yeah, so that was the idea, right? Is there's this small little mixed use community and again, the idea is there that opportunity to create more mixed use communities throughout the county? And again, it would be contiguous, but again, we heard very strongly from those individuals here in W2.
Well, why would we even introduce W3 then? It should stay W2 or go lighter to W1.
Right, so the idea is to maintain the existing zone, so keep this as the current zone W3.
But the argument is that it's separate-ish by that green space.
Yeah, and again, is we do need to clean up a little bit here, but if there is a floodplain parcel separating these, that would stay as open space. If not, it would, if there is any split zoning, which it looks like here, those would go to W2.
See why we would force them to go higher. In that particular type of area.
But we were trying to move it to XDT, right?
Right, extended up to the north.
But they have MXDP over there.
Is there a developer involved with them?
No, again, this was just something the Office of Planning and Zoning staff identified and worked with you all to make that recommendation. So it was the owner application. It's fair.
And that would make it, if they were moved,
Yeah.
it would make it not correct, some of that.
That's right. So is there any concern with change, or, sorry, not even changing, but maintaining the W2 and W3 zoning in that area?
Keeping it the way it is,
Keeping it the way it is?
that's fine.
That's fine.
Okay. Okay, and then just wanted to mention here along the Queenstown Road area, that we all, Office Planning and Zoning and the SAC both recommended R2. It was currently W1. After hearing from some of those property owners, and Sam even met with some of them in person, they are supportive of that change to maintain that historical community. Like I said, that stretches from Old Telegraph Road over to the east, over by Quarterfield. So, okay, so again, not recommending any change, just wanted to again highlight that those folks are supportive of that.
Thank you, Sam.
Looking at the Linthicum community, there were a couple areas that received a lot of input. Just want to highlight one area here to the south, here at the on the other side of, sorry, on BWI Mark Amtrak station side. There was a recommendation for mixed use, but given some environmental constraints, we may want to bring that back to and keep it as R1. The Andover Road area, which I'm saying very generally, it also included a developer, or sorry, a property owner application. Again, the community came out in full support. I think I see most of those faces here tonight. So again, the Office Planning and Zoning's recommendation is to maintain R1 for that area as well. And then there's this corner property at Camp Mead and Andover. We can get into that in a minute. And then while not a zoning change, again, the community from Linthicum had some concerns about just the planned land use being mixed use and it having a transit oriented development policy area over. So we can get into that, but those are the four that we'll cover here. So again, as you can see, formally from, or I should say with the existing zoning, this open space area, which was based on that old floodplain map, they're recognizing that there are these environmental constraints. Sean's group has helped us identify that a lot of this area is encumbered with environmental restrictions. So with that, Office Planning and Zoning's recommendation is to revert that back to R1, or I should say, maintain it as R1, right? So, any concerns there? All right, looking at the Andover Road area, like I said, there was concern about overdevelopment, the road capacity, safety, loss of character if these properties were to get developed at a higher density. So again, I know the language here is we were recommended zoning back to R1. It's really just maintain maintain R1 zone. And this would also then, so this includes these two 300 and 301 are the peach color and the yellow color, and then 09 was the individual's property who submitted an application. So again, it's Office Planning and Zoning's recommendations to keep that as R1.
Which part of this, because there's two zones there.
This is everything here within the red.
We're going to.
As R1.
We're recommending an R5.
That's right. So R5 on the west side of White Avenue and R2 on the east side.
Yeah, and that's R2 connected to it on the other side, correct?
Yeah,
These are the spots that are right next to the hotels, right?
Yeah.
that's right, over here.
Yeah, this is the individual who applied on it is developed their land with multiple homes, correct?
This corner
Yeah.
property, triangular property, right? And so again, our recommendation would be for all three of these coded areas.
Within,
One being this property, two being here, and three being the yellow. So again, it's the entire area that's in yellow. I think this one area to the north might have my line drawn wrong. Sam. Yeah, I think this already is R2. That is, just sort of envision the line going just to the west, now that I'm looking at this again.
So my opinion is you have a community that came out with very strong support. I would not want to go against what the community is asking for and wants. So I think we would revert back to. I mean, it's a simple decision.
Little carve out the application.
This-
Yeah, right there. So how many acres is that
It's about 3 acres, or 3 acres.
they wanted? I think potentially to build.
And then they, I think initially, requested R10.
yeah.
R10, yeah.
No, we went on to
Then what's
that.
Right.
The solar lot,
Yeah.
it's still in support of that being able to.
Yeah.
So the thing about that, right, is, there may have been some confusion about, individuals being comfortable with him being able to subdivide his land at the current density. Not approval, and it's approval of, say, that subdivision at that density, not approval of an R10 density.
Gotcha.
Aren't these just outside of the VWI overlay?
That's right. Yeah. So the BWI overlay, mixed use overlay is essentially this purple area less, these lots here.
Mark, you were correct, the area,
Yeah.
the open spaces, that's at R2 current.
Yeah.
So it's,
So again, just one small mistake here. The idea here is not to change any of the zoning here in this area, is to leave this as R2, which it currently is, and leave the remaining area as R1. Okay. So is there any concern or anybody that wants to stay with?
I mean, I just drove by there on the way here and, I mean, I recognize that, you know, there's some very nice houses in that area and it looks kind of like, you know, you're in another little, it's like you just drove through like different area, like suddenly you're in a suburban and then suddenly you're in a rural space. And then you're like, oh wow, there's some hotels. So I guess it just doesn't, you know, I recognize it's very nice, but it also doesn't really seem to fit in North Arundel and Arundel County. We were there before. No, I understand. And I've lived places where things grow up around and, you know, that happens. But I just, you know, I understand why we were motivated to, because it just seems like there's a lot of potential, space to, you know, develop and still keep some of the character. That's where I felt like R2 was a way to kind of, you know, expand a little bit without, you know, destroying the neighborhood. I felt like it was it.
Yeah, I do hear what she's saying. I mean, we went through a long discussion about this. Not a significant change, in the zoning,
R1 to R2 is,
and you still have to go through the process. you know what I'm saying, to have those developments occur. Giving that opportunity that we discussed to allow to be there. This is, we're talking about it. You know, this is years, decades. I'm with her. Just,
If the majority of people that comes to it, I live in Lindsay, support that, I see why we should change it. Why should we?
and I hear that. I hear
There's
that.
wetlands back there too.
We're gonna take a public comment.
We're supposed to be representing the community and that's.
Amen.
We should respect.
That's the.
I mean, we're all.
Yeah.
Right. And while they may not be properly informed of the process, that's where I'm at as well. I hear community as well, so.
Again, I understand that. We're not trying to pave the way for large developers to come in and grow down neighborhoods. But you're talking about generational changes, right? We're setting up the future of possibilities and it could maintain that way for the next 150 years without any change, same house, same property. But it just gives the opportunity for someone to go, I bought this land, I have an acre and a half, I'd like to subdivide it into two. Right, or whatever the case is. Part of the beginning of this meeting was the housing shortage in the north side of the county. I think we're pretty heavy in northern Anne Arundel County. We're not saying we're gonna allow townhouses to come in. We're talking R1 to R2. It's not R10, there's R2 right above it. And I wanted to clarify, R2 down, all the bright yellow, is it already, is below the dotted line, that same indication was already R2? That's all R1 current.
This, yeah, right, so everything. Let me bring up existing zoning.
Your point is it's contiguous to R2.
Yeah, I mean, it's right there. I mean, it's not a drastic change.
I mean, the application wanted R5.
And
Yeah, we're not doing that. So, I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, sorry, not the fact, but yeah, that's a lot. That R2 is small,
It gives opportunity.
right? And just like the, yeah, growth and development.
So again, this is the adopted zone. So there's just this part of two up here. And then the rest is like.
What's the brown shading? Mark?
This is R5. Recommended to be R. So I'm not hearing consensus on R1. Okay. So again, as you all can, just, there's another property that we'll get to in a minute where you all had a split recommendation of C3 or C4. We can do that as well. Because again, it's for policy decisions, we need a 2/3 majority.
So just to be clear, that the brown area where it's recommending 5. And that's, we want to revert that. We want all of this to be 2, or what are we? Is that included in what we're trying to keep? Because that's a lot of this.
I think we were using like road sort of as a transition, so it's our part. It's like we were recommended.
Got it, right. It's the only one that's requested it, so. The whole.
I thought the whole brown, the whole tan.
Within the red.
Okay, and then the carved out piece was the R5, the application.
So it's again, everything within the red line here, it's existing R1, except for again, R2 up here.
Yeah.
And the recommendation during our last meeting was R5 on the west side of White Avenue and R2 on the east side. And so again, it's, Karen, you could take a vote. If it's a 2/3 majority, then that's the committee's recommendation.
So we're not asking to change our decision on the R5, just what's to the right of it.
think we're.
I think they're
Proposing the county,
Doesn't it all-
proposing to revert back home.
Oh,
That's right.
yeah, then I'm, yeah, because I don't think that's R5. R2 is gonna be better than,
You're saying west of White Road.
I mean, it's just, I thought,
I think it was transition because you're next to the BWI.
so we wanna bring all of this red to 2. R2. So.
No, you have, there's a handful of us.
Bring it back. That,
Maintain.
right,
So yeah, as you can take a vote to see where we stand, if there is a 2/3 majority. If not, we can input the SAC's recommendation. Of whatever the 2 positions are. It sounds like there are just 2 positions here. And provide a justification for each one of those positions.
So Mark, to be clear, is it that whole brown area that had the initial request for R5, or is it just the dotted?
It was just this
That's
dotted,
it.
and that was R10 is what the property owner initially requested.
Oh,
yeah, it was-
that's a lot.
Oh, what? It looks like.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Oh,
What if, so the vote would be to give them, I think R2 versus.
I think the vote would be to go with our original plan.
Can we make a recommendation to make to?
I mean, we could vote on all
Then it would be,
all
then it would be at least some,
you know.
You have to put out the option. You need to be succinct in what you.
Yeah, of course.
So I guess then the first vote is gonna be to revert all of that back to R1. And then,
Maintain.
Revert from our original.
Yeah.
That's right.
Understand.
And then the second is to R2 recommendation plus over there is R2.
You
That's
have
what I
the
see.
ability to carve out that.
That way you can use it.
This one?
Yes.
Yeah, and is
You
that,
can.
are we putting that within that R2?
So-
That's what I'm
I need to like take a step back. So the initial application was for that singular property.
Right, I remember all of that.
And,
Trying to
right, but reviewing
You know what I
the
mean?
comments, there were quite a few people who were they don't want the rest of the neighborhood change, but they did support that applicant's petition to move forward with being able to change that.
Well, I think it was just if the property owner wanted to subdivide their land at the current density of R1.
They were fine with it being not.
Yeah, right, not recognizing that
Okay.
it was sort of 2 actions. One was potential subdivision under the current zoning. Another was the individual's application for R10.
Gotcha.
And that's
Yeah.
too much.
So. And the sense was keep this community as R1.
So it's R1 versus R2,
Here's for that one piece.
That's what it sounds like to me. Or,
just
Okay.
all of
For this red zone.
what read it, that's right.
versus 2.
There's not.
So-
It's an opportunity.
These numbers.
I think that's why everything stays the same. but the-
So yeah, I think you should,
Yeah.
on
So,
2 and.
and remember, guys, this vote is just for recommendation.
Yeah.
We're not, nothing is,
anything that's being said back.
the vote is for a recommendation. It's not, we're not voting for a change. So we are voting for a recommendation. It's not to go for a process change, but we're not changing anything.
And that might be a good opportunity for me to jump in and say the next step is the planning advisory board. They have public hearings, they provide their own recommendation. That'll occur starting next month. And then in early winter 2025 is when all 3 three recommendations, the Office of Planning and Zoning's recommendations, the SAC's recommendations, and the Planning Advisory Board's recommendation go to county council. And county council also has a series of public hearings, and they're the body that ultimately adopts the zoning map. So as Karen had mentioned, this is one step in that process of developing a recommendation to help the county council better understand where the public is coming from and you all as stakeholders representing that community to help inform them their decision. So.
And what was the public's opinion on this?
So again, this is a meeting of the Stakeholder Advisory Committee. The public will have their opportunity to provide public comment at the end of this meeting. Karen.
So we're gonna take.
So, can I ask, so you're recommending that, that it go back to R1?
Correct.
And we followed your recommendations so far, right? No changes, pretty much.
I think there were a few differences. And that's,
The original ones, there was a lot of action.
What?
Lighting, it was a lot of compromise is what happened. There was a lot of compromise. So if we're gonna revert completely, back to, or we want to maintain some compromise, really what's coming down. While we listen to the community as well as understand what planning board meetings.
I mean, I understand, yeah, why OPZ wants to make, why they made the recommendation, and I understand why we made our decision, back a couple months ago. So, it's balancing those two decisions, right? So, and that's why we're gonna vote on it. Right? Everyone can make their own decision.
so I just wanted to bring up the planned land use map. If you do remember, there's that crosswalk between planned land use, which are your general categories, and then zoning, which are your more specific categories, of what you can and can't do with your property. This area is low density residential. Both R1 and R2 are consistent with that designation. So do just want to add that to the conversation.
We get a definition of what R2 provides
Yeah,
from zoning. I think there's a lot of confusion as to
Yeah.
what.
it's
this
right
zoning-
here.
Yeah.
Here, Ted. Right there.
R2 is.
R2, this district is generally intended for low-density suburban, single-family, detached residential development at a subdivision density of either one dwelling per 20,000 square feet, no public sewer, or 2.5 dwellings per acre with public sewer. A maximum lot of 20,000 square feet if not served by public sewer. A lot of other things about public sewer, but it's basically, it's one dwelling per 20,000 square feet. Single family developments, it's not a change to the look of the neighborhood. It's not going to allow a huge developer to come in and change the neighborhood. Like I said in my initial comment, there's not going to be any change or growth within the community if we don't allow for it in the future. I don't plan on living in my house in the next 100 years, and I don't really care what happens in the next 100 years, but we have a housing shortage. That was the number one topic, the number one thing we discussed beginning of this meeting. And we're not trying to change the community, we're just trying to give it an opportunity for the future.
Yeah, but the housing shortage isn't gonna be something that's tiny little. area. And the difference is on 20,000 square feet, R2, 40,000 square feet, R1.
Doubling the density.
Yeah. Yeah, so
But you're lowering height also, so you also have height advantages and differences. It's a 10-foot difference from R1, R5, which is R2, which is a drive. So R2 actually is a lower building.
yeah, which is,
R1 is a taller building. So, I mean, it's really,
let's
you
vote
know,
on it.
yeah, let's think about this.
Let's do it.
To maintain R1, can we have?
It's very hard to hear you back here. I'm just hearing here what we're voting on.
It's not, it's a board vote, it's of course.
Here.
For R1, if we can,
Yeah, please fill the record. So I can get names.
We're
Voting to maintain R1 right there. No.
It's on,
Voting on
we're
R1,
voting on R1.
which is what it is now.
Maintain what is already existing.
And what the next one is?
And the next vote is to bring it to R2.
Okay, I'm over against maintaining.
Right, so we're going one, so that would be, so we're gonna take a vote.
Okay, so that was a no for me.
Correct.
But I'm confused.
Wait, we're maintaining, the first vote is to maintain R1.
She said.
Right, she's saying no.
Just saying no.
Oh, I misunderstood. No, as well.
No.
Patricia, no. Is Mo?
Yes,
Mo,
but yes. Maintain.
and Jennifer,
No.
okay, Dan, or I'm Eric.
Yes.
Eric, yeah.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Karen?
Can you guys hear me?
Sean?
Yeah, the record's gonna have to reflect for both of these. I have to abstain because we own property in both these areas.
Just to maintain or.
And Mayor? No.
You also, yeah, but, board member line, you have, Corey's.
I don't know if you guys can hear me or not. Can you guys hear me?
He supports our tip.
He supports R too. Okay, so he would be a no. So. Yeah, 12 people. 6, and 11, and then Corey's on. So for the yeses, I have to keep it as R1, Mo, Eric, and Jim Lucas. So that's 3 out of 12. So that's 25%. So now if we were to go to R2, same
So
idea.
what does that mean? I'm sorry. That means it.
So again, is to support policy recommendation like zoning, you would need a 2/3 majority, right? So that wasn't reached. Okay, so now we're looking to pull R2. If that doesn't reach 2/3, then we can provide a recommendation of both positions as well as a justification, if that sounds appropriate. Okay. So Karen, do you want to?
So we're looking for a vote to move to R2.
Yeah.
Okay. And Dan,
Yes.
okay, Patricia,
Yes.
okay, and Mo,
No.
Jennifer,
Yes.
No.
Karen?
Yeah.
Sean is abstaining, Jim Lucas.
No.
Jim Crow?
Yes.
Yes. And Mara Lee
Yes.
and Corey, if you could just confirm, right, via via chat here that we have that. So there we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 out of 12 members is 75%. That does meet that 2/3 majority. So the SAC's recommendation for this area will be R2. One recommendation. Does an individual want to provide a justification for amending R2 for this entire area? I mean, some of the things that we had heard was it's consistent with the planned land use, low density residential, and provides opportunity for
Expansion.
for incremental growth.
I was gonna say that. Okay. You said it for me.
Okay. Okay, comfortable moving on to the next one. Okay, the next area again is, I want to emphasize that there are no significant zoning changes in this area. The only zoning changes would be consistency zoning changes where there may have been just some cleanup for alignment to ensure parcels have one zoning district instead of being split zoned with sort of like a sliver of another zoning district. However, there was public concern about, again, this is the Lincoln Light Rail, sorry. There was concern about overdevelopment, loss of character, and potentially more crime in this area. If sometime in the future, a zoning district was applied that would allow some sort of mixed use, because again, the recommended plan land use is mixed use. The development policy area, the overlay, is transit oriented, which really just indicates that sometime in the future, when there's, after the mixed use zoning districts have been reformed, and there is a bill that may be introduced later this fall that does that better reflects some of the characteristics or the vision that you all have for this area. As we discussed, you all were thinking like sort of 2 to 3 story type of mixed use building. So again, there would be no zoning change, or there is no zoning change that's recommended for this area. But again, it's having a mixed use plan land use. And again, as if you can make out the legend here, it would be that diagonal area. These two here at the bottom are the existing planned land use. And then on this side is the area, it would share the same shape as the mixed use. This is transit oriented, just indicating that, again, sometime in the future, if properties are redeveloped, that they become walkable, they support transit, it's mixed use. And there would even be a study that would be done to help inform, say, any development guidelines or design guidelines. So again, no zoning change, it's just planned land use and development policy area. So any interest in moving away from that position? Okay. The next property here is at the corner of Camp Mead and Andover. The planned land use from Plan 2040 identified it as industrial, given its connection here to the south to the airport. And so a consistent zoning district was recommended to be W1. And the property owner also did submit an application for that property. They were looking for W1 as well. So again, OPZ's recommendation is to keep the recommended W1 zoning district. But again, hearing from the community, there was concern about, because it is a wooded lot currently, there was concern that if that property were to be developed, that there would be a loss of this noise and sort of view shed buffer.
Yeah.
But the other point is it is currently zoned R5. I think it's a little over 1 acre. And if that's the case, then they would be able to develop, sort of 5 units per acre. So it would not stay with a lot. So is there any interest in moving away from that W1 zone, recommended W1 zoning district?
Well, I mean, we discussed that issue, yeah, I think when we talked about this, and that there was gonna still be like a little bit of woods between the BWI trail and the, I think, proposed parking lot.
We couldn't say exactly where that area, that wooded forest conservation area would be necessarily. But there would be some type.
It would still be like some kind of.
There would be some protection.
Because I share the concern. I definitely share the concerns. I do enjoy the BWI trail. I mean, if it was an R5, it certainly would be less annoying than parking, I think. Because that's houses, right? Houses are less annoying than cars in general.
That could be.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, I don't know. But I don't think it's sad enough to not to make the owner change their intended use for the property, as long as there's still a tree buffer between the BWI lot. Yeah.
It needs, we can still have a setback requirement right there, right?
It would be setback and, landscape buffers.
Right.
As well.
And a W one is small. It's probably better for the conventional, at night, everybody goes home, you know what I mean?
Well, they want to develop.
I think that was the intent of the application, was to do parking.
We don't have any indication on like number of spaces or anything.
Yeah.
Looking at the Ferndale area, the only area where, actually, we didn't get many comments within the Ferndale community, but we did get one application here on Route 2 corridor. This is right just south of the interchange. And this property is just off of Route 2. It's on Shelley Road. It's currently a wooded lot. It's undeveloped. The initial recommendation was R15, based on the, I think, planned land use. And the property owner is requesting R22.
Yeah.
So, I just want to verify what planned land use is before we go further here.
Like
Cedar Morse.
we talked in depth about Ferndale and what they might.
Yeah, so it is
need
high
there.
density residential.
I don't remember R22.
That's the community request.
So during this
We
public,
host the senior, so there's, he's about to tell us what the plan land is.
right, so the planned land use for this property is high density residential. R15 and R22 are both consistent with that. I think the current zoning is C3, which actually does allow, I think we said it was C15, or sorry, it was actually R15. Yeah, so it's C3.
So that's on the other side of the giant.
Yeah, it's right behind,
NBA and
yeah, it's right across the street from the VA in that area. There's a lot of, really bad spots, and a lot of people across the street there, it's really dangerous.
Here's the, that's the belt, that's the 695 exit ramp.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of leading you through the zoning code here. So it's currently zoned C3, which does allow as conditional use multifamily dwelling. So then we got to jump down here to conditional uses. We go to dwellings, multifamily. And so the development, let's say, in a C3 district actually does currently permit 15 units per acre, if you can see that there, right? So they're looking.
Require commercial.
That's right. So the next point here is that there should be a mix of uses, right? So 50% of the floor area in C3 district should be commercial.
Oh.
So because while office planning and zoning is recommending this just be rezoned to R22 and take it out of the commercial zoning district, is because if 50% of the floor area needs to be commercial, they don't have frontage on a major highway, right? And it doesn't, we don't see that necessarily work well. So going back here to the map, right, is if there was to be commercial, there would be some more traffic coming on and off of Shelley Road here. So if it already permits R15, office planning and zoning is also comfortable with it going to R22. Again, sort of recognizing that housing deficit, if there is that opportunity.
So it's right next to what, R5 there?
Right, there's just a small area of R5, but then the rest of this is, I think this is R15. This,
Yeah, those are
right,
apartment complexes.
Oh, right, and then so R 15, I think here, and R 22 to the side.
That's behind it.
Like, they're like townhouses.
Yeah, well, there's townhouse apartments.
A community.
There's one that's across the street.
It's all like little, it's all row house, it's like a development.
Yes.
So, Mark, do we know what they want to do with that? I mean, I don't think it's fair that we, in a vacuum, say it doesn't make sense for there to be commercial. What if they've got an idea of what they want to do?
Their idea is workforce housing.
What does that mean?
And so if they were allowed to have commercial, they could have a doctor, a lawyer, a therapist that could support that workforce. Because as you keep saying, it is a difficult area. There are a lot of folks back there that need workforce housing, but they need services. So I think if these folks have in mind that they're gonna offer services, do you follow me? Anyway.
It's hard for them to develop the 50% of it as commercial, the commercial market.
That's not how
What it also does is it rules out half the property, so gives you a much smaller footprint for residential. You end up with very few housing units.
Yeah.
So that makes it harder for commercial, so you don't have the rooftops.
Fair enough, Jim.
Now,
I just want to, sorry, well, just want to pull up real quick, is here is the use of workforce housing. So you can see that it's intended to be affordable housing based on certain metrics
Okay.
within the Baltimore metropolitan statistical area.
Yeah,
So all of that, sorry.
I like that a lot. That's what we need. We include.
Yeah.
So are we?
Our option is, I mean, I'm cool with staying with R 15. You know, the OPC, for it to go to R 22 is what they're saying. For a new recommendation or request, we already, after processing all of this last meeting, our committee, board decided on R 15. So they're requesting R 22, so, kind of in between, but I think I want to stay with the R 15, so. Do, or we seeing the same?
I'm okay with our.
yeah. If it can accommodate 7 more houses, why not?
I don't care either way, honestly.
I don't either.
Yeah, and if we don't care, then I would rather go for the more.
Well, we gotta care, we gotta think about.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care, like they're okay either way. I think that's what
Think about a plan, right? I'm okay either way too, so, and I understand also the need for workforce housing, so.
Well, can I just throw this, if people really don't care one way or another, can we say the SAC recommends R 15 or R 22? We're good with either one.
I mean, you know,
Might as well just get Mark 22 with their request.
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I'm okay with March 22 as well.
and again, where I'm going though is if this goes to the planning advisory board and public comment or something comes in and, you know, we were going for R 22, and someone, no, I want R 5. Well, at least, you know, we have that argument to maybe compromise down to R 15, or, you know, that's kind of what my thinking of saying R 15 or R.
I think we're thinking like, let's go big. Go
And we-
big.
and we have to remember, I mean, we can recommend the 22, I mean, I'm cool with it also, you know, because just like planning is only. They have to have certain setbacks and guidelines, they still have to go through the process. So, you know, it's not gonna work, if we give it to them, it's still not gonna work. So do we wanna just like take a note on R 22, to move it to R 22 as recommended? So can we just start? We're voting for R 22.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that's Yes. Vote home, Dan,
Yes.
and Patricia.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Aaron, yes. Yes. Okay.
So we're all.
It's sweet, it's quick and sweet.
There you go. And again, is OPZ's recommendation we provided here, just a justification indicating that it's consistent and that it is that opportunity to provide additional housing. Okay, moving over to the Brooklyn Park area. We received 2 applications in this area. I'll go over those here shortly. We did receive just a little bit of comment for the Brooklyn, or sorry, for the Belgrove site. There was some general support. I think some people, it was just a big site and a lot of people sort of had a hard time getting their arms around it and saying exactly what should happen where, but some general themes were traffic. We've heard from some individuals in the Pumphrey community who said, you know, that they may support development because it'll help them prevent some runoff into that community or flooding. So there were some positives and negatives with whatever development may happen there on that property in the future. And then over on, again, Route 2, going back to that one property that you all had struggled with as well, whether you want to recommend C3, C4, we can revisit that and discuss that. Okay. So with that, here's one new application. It was 25 Nursery Road. Let me go back here just to give you the big picture. So up here, just right. And most of it had been in this, you know, formally, or this mapped, currently zoned open space based on that old FEMA floodplain map. So it's currently split R5 OS, and our initial recommendation was because we didn't catch that during our cleanup to try to make each property one zone, and because this is privately owned, it's not a dedicated floodplain parcel. We would be recommending R5 for this property. And so the property owner is requesting C1 or C5. And again, they probably recognize that their property is currently zoned OS, can't do much with it, and is just looking for being able to do something with their property. So that, if I were to read into this a little bit more, that's where they may be coming from. So again, it's based on the surrounding community, the surrounding zoning district, we're recommending.
So what's the?
This area here.
Oh, that's
the existing
You want
zone.
something, you
Yeah.
want something,
Yeah.
either C1 or C5, or R5. So R5 should be cool with that, I mean, unless you guys.
Yeah,
You know, I mean,
everybody comfortable with that.
Yeah, it's right in the middle of the subdivision.
Then this was an interesting one where along Belgrove Road, again, I just want to give you the big picture here, right? So it's this one right here. Just east of the Pumphrey community.
So W1 now?
So the planned land use identified this parcel outlined in red as industrial. And so because there was just this small little sliver, this dotted line of C4 that fell onto that property, we recommended the entire property be W2. However, when the property owner received the letter, because if there was a zoning change for somebody's property, they received the letter, they called us and said, hey, actually, we want C4 instead of W2. And so, you know, because those zoning districts are somewhat comparable in their intensity of use, we're comfortable with this property going to C4. And we would then change the planned land use to commercial as well.
They want, like, because they're interested in auto sales.
So right now, it's like an auto detailing an operation.
It's
all
all
gonna use-
auto
yeah.
over there.
Yeah.
Everything in
They
that
just
area.
bought it a few years ago. It's a pretty good property.
Yeah.
And then the back of it's buffered by that road behind it, it just across to that one street.
Oh, there's no there and there, no.
Yeah, so we talked about that one.
Oh.
Yeah,
I think it's this one right here.
Yeah.
right, so it's right next to Miss Erica's Kitchen, which is Pizza World, Planet, whatever.
And you can see how,
Yeah, it's all.
Yeah, dude, this whole thing is industrial. I don't think,
I don't think it's gonna affect.
I ride that road every day. I don't think.
Cars that are actually defects as opposed to cars that are broken.
They already have a parking lot. Yeah, so I don't know what there's a real big issue.
Yeah.
This C4 cover what they have today.
That thing that covers most automobile uses.
It does.
Yeah.
So are we going with a recommendation for C4? We're cool on that?
I'm just gonna answer your question real quickly, Mayor Lady, since it's up
There's
here.
not much C4 county.
So C4 automobile, again, looking here at right hand column, a lot of keys for permitted uses. So, and donut shop. Yeah. One day. Okay, so SAC is comfortable with C4.
Yeah.
Okay. And then here, our last one again is 6025. And there are a couple other addresses I think associated with the Ritchie Highway here. The property owner, again, had submitted an application from the start, looking for C4. Office planning and zoning initially recommended C3, given the adjacent properties. You all were split on this. I think it was like 6-7 or something like that when we met, very much down the middle. Our recommendation is still C3 for these problems, or for this, the outline.
This is where they wanted to extend the operations further back, correct?
So,
They're out of the new plan.
Yeah, they're currently not conforming.
Right.
Correct. And have it.
They wanna come in.
give a, hang in there, because I want to get, parts on this one because it's a little tricky.
Yeah, that's, yes, it's, yes, the truck.
Yeah.
Isn't the area that? Forest County, isn't it?
This area back here,
Yeah,
I couldn't tell you off, I'd have to look.
I think it is. Where Cedar. All that forest there, the cedar has branches, I'm pretty sure it's on.
What if you click on it? Cedar Hill.
So it creates a buffer.
Oh, like an open, yeah, an open space.
Oh, I don't have range for mine. It might be on here.
Right area.
No, that Greenway map. The thing's been recorded for a while. Yeah, so I think it's all in forest county, once it won't come down, so it creates like a buffer between the commercial.
I think the concern in the area is the traffic.
Yeah.
Especially with the new issues going on and the reverting of the traffic coming through that. I'm still with the secret, like recommended.
So at this point, are we removing the R15 and going completely, because I think it's probably R15 and C3, so the recommendation is to remove the R. And just go completely C3.
So R15 for.
Yeah, it's.
And the recommendation is, again, is take the entire property to, office planning and zoning's recommendation is to take the entire property to C3.
And then they can't use it for storage or. The C4 allows them to do something. I'm just trying to establish here. The argument. We disagree there.
The C4 is a highway commercial district. Like, and
Wasn't the issue that it's a non-conforming use?
Yeah, but I think we can allow them to continue
They can do it.
non-conforming, not to be non-conforming. If under C3, correct? That's what I just wanted to just.
When we're gonna see an application.
Was there additional public comment? Yeah.
Just. Say, I'll bring it up actually here. So. From a representative. Do you want me to just, I'll leave this up here for a minute?
yeah,
So you can read this.
I like that.
So Sam, you had said, Sam's confirming that. The area, do you want to explain?
Yeah, so the area that's R10, looking at the plat, it is platted forest con, so it's not natively developed or clear.
Wait, I'm sorry, you said R10 in the map change.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, sorry, this area here.
Yeah, so if I
Okay,
put back on the zoning real quick, so it's currently zoned R10. I know previously we discussed that areas that are platted forest con easements that we'd recommend OS because it's conserved in perpetuity.
Right,
In this case, because that parcel is a part of a PUD, a planned unit development, we aren't making a recommendation because developments, developable capacity, the residential development is based upon their overall zoning. So we do not want to make any recommended changes that could impact that because the area is still developed. And create confusion, across the board. So that's why it is platted forest con, it's just not recommended OS because it's in the PUD.
so Arca is not gonna be. Does anybody have any additional like comments as to why we go C4 as opposed to C3, or do you want to stay with it?
St. Pass in the area is already industrial looking enough, and it's the main entryway into Brooklyn Park, and it's the first thing that you see. And then you've got the Cedar Hill development that gives the area a little bit of light, but then you shift right from that into, you know, all these kind of buildings that aren't maintained, and you see a bunch of trucks and junk, and so when we first came here, we talked about the vision we have. And it needs to
Yes.
face the walk, I don't wanna see
Right.
more of that.
agreed.
Well,
Good point.
I
So
mean,
I was just leaving up here too, scrolling a couple more of the comments left by.
I understand.
It's still gonna drag in.
It's already dragging in traffic.
I mean, it'd be nice to.
That's the.
Not
that's the
having all-
neighboring housing. 6027.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Mhm. And then it's environmental too.
Exactly.
Where we are.
Yeah, no, the 6027 is, I think, part of this application.
Oh, it's the rear.
Oh, I saw Kim here for a second. Okay, confirming this is the property owner. Kim, sorry.
I'm not the property owner, no.
No, but this
The
individual.
property owner is here, though, Mark.
Okay.
I can answer the question if you want the answer.
Is this the property owner? Yeah.
I'm the property owner.
Does that comment?
Is this common? It's towing and repair.
Ariana's is, on our property.
Okay.
But there's 6027, which is Marvin's muffler. 6027R is the record behind Marvin's muffler. All one continuous park street, it's subdivided. Back in the 60s, unfortunately, the post office and utilities never. They just separate the designation by adding the park.
And there was one more comment here.
There's also opposition online for it to be changed. There's some people who are unable to use this common property. Feedback, but that choice to make.
So again, we can only present, right, is what we heard online as well as during our drop-ins, and based on that, there's the support for C4.
So do you want to take a vote to remain at C3 in the recommendation, or to move C3 in recommendation of OPZ?
I thought the
Yeah, I
recommendation.
haven't.
Are in it.
What's that, yeah, what's
To
happening
keep
with
it
R15?
res-
No, it's currently
Yeah, that's our
mixed.
C3.
right, C3 and R15. I think
Right.
we're trying to, I think our initial
Yeah, never make-
recommendation was to make it all C3
Yeah, that's.
or C4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And OBZ's recommendation is to maintain the C3.
Portion of it, correct, that's what I was.
Yeah.
I'd rather have.
Well, not the portion.
Yeah, that's okay, because the C3.
It just seems like they have authority to continue operating in a non-conforming fashion, right? So even though it's zone C3 or R15, isn't that what I'm getting from?
This is not.
Approval as a non-conforming use.
Why would we not want to do them C4 standard
Yeah.
conforming?
Yeah, I know, it's.
No.
But doesn't that fall to what Sam you just said? Or am I applying this to the wrong one? Didn't you just say they're residential?
No, the point was that adjacent to.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, thank you.
If they're gonna continue operating in a non-conforming fashion, I don't honestly see a huge issue with moving it to C4, but I am not entirely 100% sure what is encompassed within C4, right? So, I don't think they're gonna develop like an oil refinery, but I don't know what the possibilities are there.
Right, plans on the highway.
Yeah.
I mean, it's actually, I have a question, so.
You're looking at, you're. No,
Thank you. The current use for non-conforming use, is that only run with that use, right? Like if another tenant comes in, they cannot be grandfathered into that non-conforming use or can that?
So, the non-conforming use, the way that Rob Conwell, who's with us at the last meeting, we were talking zoning. The non-conforming use, that there's a new tenant that they could assume that non-conforming use, as long as they built the proper paperwork, to continue that same
Okay.
use. They could not go to a different use, is my understanding, to the non-conforming regulations.
Gotcha.
And, yeah, and that's.
Yeah, so that, for me, that's why I was going to C3, because they have the non-conforming, it's already been upheld. Versus, going to C4 in the mix of residential and two C3s on either side.
I mean, C3 is rather a little bit limiting, isn't it,
A
in
little
terms
bit
of what they
less.
can do?
And then again, if the property sold or, whatever. it's-
Yeah, I like the limit. I just hate that way that area goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, they might be better.
Yeah.
So are we saying?
Well, it would be a change to a C3
Oh,
or a
it's change.
C4. I mean, is what I've heard on the table. We don't wanna, I don't think we want to keep
Because I want to
the
hold.
split zone.
Matching areas, they're doing that much, if you do 4, they're gonna do more.
So it sounds like, I think we may, I might want to hear a, it's just a,
I guess I just. You know. What are we worried about with the C4?
Same thing as.
let me just bring up the,
There's no flow there.
so here are the general descriptions. If you'd like, I can also then go into the actual zoning code and pull up the permitted use chart.
So, right,
They're
right,
almost exactly the same,
No,
like literally,
they're not.
it's so close.
10,000 square feet, minimum lot coverage,
80 versus 85.
85.
Yeah, but forest conservation will keep them from going to 85 actually.
Yeah, I mean,
Can you show that table, Mark? You had a table that listed, like you kind of checked off things, what was C3 and what was C4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think we right.
so again, there's a lot of uses here.
Yeah,
I don't know.
C4 has a lot.
If there's anything sort of in particular, we can
Yeah.
speak down to that, but.
She's looking for anything red flag.
You know, it's mostly allowing some more automobile uses,
Boat sale.
right?
Ain't nobody gonna buy it over there.
I did.
And you've got some additional ones.
The bus terminals, so there is some stuff, and what is the,
Not bad thing.
like, you're gonna be limited by the amount of space they have.
Yeah, they're gonna be limited by the space.
So do we want to move to a vote? In the interest of time, we discussed this. I think everybody is pretty, unless there's new information that anybody please present.
So what's that?
That's exciting.
For this property, is
No, we
a
can just
split
like-
C3 and C4. Meaning
Sounds
that.
like
So we're gonna take a vote to go C3 with the recommendation of Office of Planning and Zoning, so we're just gonna start.
Yeah.
So we can start somewhere.
We saying C3,
C3,
yeah.
you agree with C3? Okay.
I do not.
I agree with C3.
Yeah. Mo,
I agree with C3.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Karen, yes. Sean, yes. Jim Williams, yes. Jim Craft,
Yeah.
no. Carolyn, no. And Corey, C3 is a yes. Okay.
No.
9 out of 12.
Oh, definitely.
75.
It's not that close.
My brain is swimming here, so
I'm sure.
appreciate the.
Don't confuse.
All right, so 75%, again, is the threshold we were looking to get to is 2/3. So that does mean it. I'm assuming nobody also then would also vote for C4, right? Okay. Okay, so the SAC recommendation is then going to be C3. And again, maintaining that same justification, here from OPZ, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So with that, the last community was Purchase Pay, but we did not receive, any significant comments within that area. Okay. All right, so that would be the last item that we wanted to bring, the Office of Planning and Zoning wanted to bring to your attention. Is your opportunity to discuss any other properties that, again, you may have read through the public comment or heard from individuals. you need to bring that to attention. Otherwise, I would look for Karen, if you could ask for a motion to recommend approval of the SAC's recommendations on the draft zoning.
So we're there.
Yep.
So we have, just like you said, I'm looking for a motion for approval of the recommended. Any motion? Okay. All in favor? Opposed?
Okay, then moving on to the draft plan, if you haven't had enough of it. This is the other piece of the puzzle, because again, when, essentially this process goes to the county council, there will be two bills, one for the zoning map, and one for the Region 1 plan. The Region 1 plan has the plan land use and the development policy area over. Okay, so we do need, a recommended approval for both of these items. So moving into then the plan itself, the way this is organized, we provide a general overview here at the beginning, why we're doing this process, why we're looking ahead to 10, 20 years. We include a vision statement and just a brief overview of some of the key issues and recommendations that we've heard. Again, this is not a complete list. If you look then further throughout the document, in each of the chapters, we do identify the opportunities and challenges pertaining to each one of those topical issues. Okay. So what the Office Planning and Zoning is looking for here is we'll go through each chapter, and if you have any high-level comments, or if there are any mistakes or errors, happy to hear those, but we're not necessarily looking to wordsmith here at this point. We all have different writing styles, right? I think we can all appreciate each individual's writing. Okay. So any comments on this introduction chapter?
I think we first met in October.
October was the kickoff, yeah,
It says November,
okay. We can,
although I wasn't there, but.
yeah, we can change that to October and assume that that was our first meeting, right? Okay. No, that's.
I want to just, for the record, say that this was also, I read this environment. So
Great.
I don't have any qualms, like it makes sense, it's forward moving. And it encompasses a wide variety of community and stakeholders.
And the way I think, as you can sense how the plan is built, is you provide an overview, provide existing conditions, then get into the specific issues during those topical chapters, identifying what those issues are within the Region 1 area. And then at the end of the document is our implementation matrix, identifying how the county plan and partners plan to address those issues that have been now documented through in the document. So that kind of gives you just an overview of the flow of this plan. So any other comments for the introduction chapter? If not, I'll move on to existing conditions. And again, here we're just identifying some statistics. We haven't populated this image within the plan that we have provided you all, but just wanted to provide you an example of what it looked like in Region 2. It'll have some similarities. In addition, this information can also be found on the Region 1 hub site. We do provide those statistics there as well. And then the other part of existing conditions is we also then provide an overview and a description of each one of the communities, as well as just sort of a brief vision based on what you all discussed of how we see that community evolving, or maybe it'll stay status quo. So So any comments on the existing conditions chapter? No? Okay. Moving on, this is where we start our topical chapters. We have 4 of them: the natural environment, built environment, healthy communities, as well as healthy economy. And again, this is really the bulk or the meat that we have really met on and discussed over the past. We started in October. Our first meeting was in November, for just us, where we were able to then start talking about cultural resources and the history. And we moved then through the environment, economy, schools, parks and recreation, and those ideas. So again, this chapter just tackles natural environment. We provide an overview of existing conditions there. And at the end, based on the feedback that we have received from you all, as well as comments that we've received from the public through various means, we identify what some of the challenges and opportunities are facing the natural environment in Region 1. Yeah.
So I got a question, Mark. Actually, you got the slide right there with the sensitive areas. We have XX percentage of the land in Region 1. Where are we gonna get that percentage from, when you go to get that? What's the source, if I may ask?
It'll be our GIS program, and I'm not sure if you're asking them further, like what is would it be our land cover data? I may not be able to answer that for you, what the specific data set is.
I think in this case, it'd be percent of critical area, because it references the 100,000 feet of tidal waters. That's the measurement from tidal water to the extent that's the critical area. So it'd just be for the total acreage of Region 1, and then
Okay.
we just need to get that.
You're not gonna see it until you hit the water here, yeah. Okay. Any other questions or comments on chapter or the chapter on the natural environment? Okay. Next chapter is the built environment. It's the same idea. We just broke it down into a couple other sort of subtopics then in the built environment. One of the sections of this chapter does reflect then where we identified a planned land use of mixed use, but did not apply a mixed use zoning district to it. So we provide a description that captures what your vision is for that area. If and when there's a zoning district that's appropriate. Okay. Any comments or questions on built environment? Okay. Healthy communities. Same idea. Any questions or comments on this chapter?
These community member comments.
Yeah.
These are from like reach opportunity.
Yeah. Yep, all different things. They're all different means of how we receive public comment, whether it's a survey, whether it's a person. Yeah, that's where we capture these. Okay, no further comments or questions on healthy communities. Move on to healthy economy. Same idea. All good. All good. And then sort of getting here to the back of the document, like I said, is all that material towards the front is where we're identifying the existing conditions and what the issues are. We want to find solutions to those issues. That's where you're going to find the solutions here in this implementation matrix. So we identify what the strategy is in this column to address some of those issues and where those issues are located, because that was the point too here, these region plans versus Plan 2040, which may have identified, hey, fix stormwater management in the county. This plan says fix it in this specific location. Okay. You can also then find the related goal or policy in Plan 2040, where this sort of connects to the implementation mechanism. I forgot to include what these acronyms stand for. That is in the draft plan, which I didn't provide a screenshot of here, but it is in your plan. And really for this section, just to give you an overview, CI could stand for capital improvement. So that's an actual physical improvement where funding would need to be allocated to address that issue. It could be legislation. It could just be an issue of policy or partnerships where we just need to say reach across the boundary to the city of Baltimore and maybe coordinate on some policies there. So that's what this column is looking to address. Responsible departments, I think that's pretty self-explanatory, as well as who would be taking the lead. We've got the description of these acronyms as well in the plan. And then when we anticipate addressing that issue, whether it's short-term, midterm, or long-term, we've got some time horizons up top here. And then how we plan to measure this. So if you look back at Plan 2040, we do have an annual report where we do go back and look to see how we have addressed that issue, because it was only adopted 3 years ago. So if it was short-term strategy, how we are addressing that or not, and maybe some brief explanation to provide some context to that. In fact,
Yeah, can I ask a clarification question?
sure.
Page, just before we start this, there's a list of acronyms.
Okay.
But here on the implementation matrix, we have more acronyms up in that. Are we putting those acronyms in both of them? Kate?
Okay. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So what we need to do is, I'm gonna go to the Region 2 plan here. And we had a section.
So again, you have the,
Oh, here it is. I'm
Right.
sorry, it is in the table.
right, that's what I'm saying. It's like the
Yeah.
acronyms are on the previous page, but then
Okay.
we have more acronyms here.
Yeah. And so you're saying either put them in one place or you'd like to.
That's, well, my recommendation would be to move those acronyms, like put all the acronyms or abbreviations all in one location. Rather than, and it's just a wordsmith.
Okay.
Makes sense. though.
Yeah. I mean, when I was going through here initially, quickly on my first read through, I was going through this quickly and I totally missed those acronyms up on that. Up in the top of the matrix. I was diving right into this. I didn't even look at the headers. I was like, then I'll kind of go back and I'm like, oh, implementation right there.
Okay. So just like me, right? Okay.
I mean, that messes everybody's templates up.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah, so the city had mentioned that maybe there may be times where this implementation matrix stands alone. So you may want that,
And that's fair.
but maybe we do it in both places. Does it hurt?
I would.
Yeah.
And again, if this is a standalone thing, sure.
Yeah, okay. Great. And so again, is these strategies, we put most of them out to the public for public review up until the transportation ones. Like I said, is when we got to land use. That was something that we were then trying to address through the zoning plan land use maps, but you'll note that there are still some built environment land use recommendation or strategies. So those would be new to you, but I think really for the most part, we've been through a majority of these and reflected your comments in this now updated strategy list. Okay, so any other comments for implementation matrix. Okay. The last chapter is our appendix, and this is where we will provide, a planned land use map as well as a development policy area, and development policy area overlay map, identifying where the changes are. So there will be a similar map within the document, but it won't have the outlines of the properties. So if you're reading through the document and you're in the built environment chapter, you'll see this map without any of the black lines or any of these labels. That's to illustrate what the planned land use will be. We wanted to provide a map and table at the end of the document illustrating where those changes have been from the adopted planned land use and the adopted development policy area overlay map. We also provide a table. I'm not sure if you can read it necessarily up on the screen here, but I wanted to just highlight that within this table, we identify the property locations, the code here so that people can find it easily, the community, and most importantly, we provide a column for the SAC recommended. So policy area, land use, the justification. We provide a column for the PAV to provide their recommendation, as well as the Office of Planning and Zoning's recommendation and justification. And you'll see here that there is also, when this goes to council, a column for council to provide any amendments, so that if a member of the public picks this up, they can read it, they can identify where the change may have been and get all the information from SAC, PAV, Office of Planning and Zoning, and if there was a council amendment, so that they can then go back and review what that amendment is and how the vote may have taken place, or just get some more information, essentially. So we really want to leave these breadcrumbs so that people aren't just left with a flat adopted map, that you can see how things have changed. Okay, any comments or questions for the appendix? Okay. So I think that's it for the plan.
You have two questions.
Yep.
The development policy areas, are they? Should the change to, or we change?
Yeah, so what we'll illustrate is the, let's say if there may have been differing opinions, if there is a recommended change that does have a number so that it can be illustrated and, what do I say? So I'm trying to think of an example where the Office of Planning and Zoning may not have a recommended change, but the SAC does. We want to be able to at least capture that in some record. So that would be here. So again, it's in the body of the document, in the built environment chapter, you'll have a map for planned land use, a map for development policy area, and that will also include the overlays. In the appendix is where you'll find the planned land use map with outline changes, the development policy area map with outline changes. Is that?
Yeah, I just don't remember us talking a lot about it. Are you correcting any development areas that don't match anything we've done?
Can you bring it up? Sam, any significant ones that come to mind? Bring up the recommendations here for development policy areas and overlay. So you can see here, again, in this northern area, there aren't many. If some have changed based on zoning, you may have reflected that, so for example here. Just changing that to critical economic from neighborhood, this is that. It's not neighborhood preservation. And again, if there were just any areas that we may have missed from the name 2020, but big picture, I think this property over here is changing to critical economic. It had been neighborhood preservation. And that was based on updating or getting a recommendation from the property owner to change it to a W1, 2, and 3 zoning district. Sam, any other big ticket development policy areas? And again, this was one of the areas that we were just briefly describing. There was that one application in this area. You all had just mentioned that it was mostly industrial. So taking that from neighborhood preservation to critical economic. And, yeah, nothing over in Curtis there. Actually, sorry. I think this is just an office park here. So again, I think this is actually a new development. So where it had been neighborhood preservation, now recognizing that it's been built. It's now an office park. It should be designated as.
And then my only other one was I missed it in the built environment where you talk about mixed use. You said that we agreed to not change anything, but we have changed
Some zoning.
some zoning.
Right, so this would be areas where the zoning didn't change. Is this one section in the built environment chapter? Or where we may provide additional detail.
Well, no, this talks about us just doing, not making any changes.
What page are you on?
51. The bottom.
51.
It sounds like it comes from region 2. And we, how
Mm-hmm.
it makes it sound like we didn't change. It sounds like you're just doing it and not zoning anything. And I see that's.
Okay. Okay, so your thought is just specifying that the SAC did make recommendations to change some areas to an MXD zone,
Yeah,
but also declined to make a zoning recommendation until there's been mixed use review. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, we can do that. So again, that is the draft plan. We're still gonna obviously make some revisions. You saw that we need to plug in some charts. We wanted to obviously wait to get some final recommendations before plugging in our planned land use map and policy area. So again, this over the next month is when we'll make those updates so that we can then present it to the planning advisory. So with that, again, Karen, I would look for a motion to recommend approval of the draft plan.
Look for a motion first.
A second.
All
Who was the motion? I'm sorry.
need a motion.
Patricia was.
very.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then go with the section. Got it. Just, okay.
So all in favor? Opposed?
So then the next item on the agenda is public comment. And Karen, I'll pass it over to you.
Evening, everyone. At this point, we're going to take, in public comment. I do ask that if we can, you have 2 minutes, and more importantly, we ask that if you've already submitted a public comment, via one of the two, that, refrain from reiterating those things we have in your comments, because it is all information, that will help us with our, future decisions for the. Just make a comment.
I'm a resident of White Avenue, and, what I have to say, I say respectfully to the committee, nothing personal, but I don't understand how the voices overwhelming support we have in our community to not move forward with R2 zoning. We all came in support of keeping it as is. It's a small residential community that has been established with many neighbors that have been there for years. They raised their families there. Some still have families there. They plan to retire there. It's quiet, it's peaceful. When I called the planning and zoning office in opposition of this change, expressing comments about possible residual effects of the changes, I was told we could not speak for, other offices within Anne Arundel County, taxation, public works, whatnot. This could cause residual effects on the residents there and force them out of the community that they've worked so hard for all of their lives. And I just wanted to say that publicly. And again, with all due respect, I don't understand how our voices as a cumulative community coming together as a whole could not overpower the decision of the committee to move forward with that. Thank you.
Also live on White Avenue. There's 2 points I'll get to make. I'll make it very service on you. The first point I'd like to make is, to her point, the vast majority of the White Avenue and Andover area voted against reason. So you did not represent the community. You did your vote. The second point I would make is about, first of all, the lady over here asked about the difference between zoning in R1 and R2, and you attempted to educate yourself. On is most of the houses in that area. So they're not on sewer, which gets to residual issues he's talking about in the future. Harming the community because you're putting a burden on the community potentially of having to pay for that infrastructure that goes to R2.
I'm Glenn Howard, one of the residents in White Avenue. I don't know if you're aware, John lives down at the bottom of 90 foot drop. So if you build had to put a sewer system, if you haven't to pump the sewage uphill 90 feet, I think you're going to create some serious environmental. R1 thing allows in the water. There's a lot of trees. Converting into R2 is going to remove a lot of that stress in the thing. There's a lot of animals in there that live in that area, deer, fox, whatever. It's urban jungle. It's like Mark characterized. Maybe it was somebody else that said it. Anyway, so the White Avenue is already built out from Andover down to the end. And so in order to add a second house, you have to put like behind the existing house. You didn't tear everything down. People have put significant investment. A lot of people have upgraded their homes. There's a new roof going in on one now. The home was just sold recently, a few months ago. One's up for sale, and then there's one that was just bought very end and White and Maine, that people are just moving into. So they're moving in expecting they have an R1 property, and then they're changing it on. You'd have to like create flat lots and put everybody in the back, yes, because there's just no room to. It's all built. There's no room to put another house, and we're on septic, and the septic drain fields and everything are behind our homes. There's not going to be room to put a second septic system back there for most of us. The feasibility would not work. It just, if you like bring up the maps, you can see it for yourself. I don't know if it's the way you can show the elevation drop, but
It's huge. It's a very steep hill.
Thank you, sir.
Sarah, the state one, I'm the one at the bottom of the hill, and when we built 20 years ago, I met with a whole group of engineers at Anne Arundel County for permits. And they're very aware on the hill and everything that goes on down there, and we have spent money to help the community. And there's like an 8-foot drainage system in there. And there was a lot of planning, money spent, consideration of the neighbors. And also, I don't think I would have built my house 20 years ago if I would have known I would be fighting with the zoning board on trying to control what my property and everybody's property is gonna change to. But we have drain fields, we have septic, there is no room for a house on mine. They won't even let me, I said, you all are sitting here saying, well, you can put the second house there. They won't even let me put a built-in pool. I can't get approved for a built-in pool in my yard. I have an acre because I have septic and I have drain fields. And what it will do is it's gonna mess up my neighbor and all the drainage, and it's just gonna prevent problems on each side of my neighbor.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Jim Taka. I live on Main Avenue in the Lincoln District. Mark, question for you. Were there any public comments in support of the changes that were proposed?
There was one public comment, right? Left just one public comment in support of our two, recognizing, yes. it's
Making the changes, and how many were opposed to it?
What's the number? Over hundreds, 200 comments, not only.
Okay, so I guess going back to the first argument, I don't see how you all reviewed all those comments. You know, the public is against it. The residents are against it. We bought in the same area for the peace and quiet. We don't want the.
Talk to the airport, before we go back there to see what their expansion was gonna be for our area before we go.
So I again don't see how, well, before I finish, Mark, are you gonna change your recommendation? Your recommendation was to leave it as R1. Does this vote change your report?
I think we talk about it, but I can't say at this
And
point.
our property is also wet.
Let him finish.
Right, so we would take that, the SAC's recommendation into consideration before presenting to the planning advisory board.
Okay, and so you all, the stakeholders representing us, I strongly suggest that you revote on that change.
Hi, I'm Shelley Teese. I also live on Main Avenue, a neighbor of Jim and Amy's. My husband Gil and I bought it just a few years ago. And while it's lovely, it's wonderful, we love it, there's a real practical matter here. It's because Jim mentioned the airport. Well, there is an airport there. There's noise. Everybody talks about the noise. But one of the things that area lost a long time ago was the natural filtration of those trees. And you will have Shipley Road, Hawthorne Road, they will smell that fuel engine. They probably can smell it at the Maritime sometimes on a real down, like a cloudy day. That's a health concern. And so I think that we're really doing a public service there by keeping our forested area, because we're protecting a lot of that main Linthicum. And those big runways that run over NSA and along that 295 sector, that is a lot of wooded area there. I mean, that gives off a lot of fumes. So there's a real practical matter there with the airport. I have mentioned in one of our meetings to the airport, they should be planting more trees in some of those areas for that filtration. So, so there is a real practical matter there for people.
Mary Shepherd, I don't live on White. But the zoning on the light rail station, it kind of skimmed over it, we didn't really cover it in depth, but I want to publicly say, I personally do not want that area mixed use. I don't want an apartment built in that corridor. It is a single family home environment. I think everybody in this room, in these seats, want the light rail shut down and to stop closed. So the last thing we want is the ability for more people outside the community to come and
create havoc. So it wouldn't even make any sense to have apartments there or some type of mixed use, building. So. Thank you.
I'm Jennifer Brandon. I'm the owner of the last property that voted on tonight. Property where there seemed to be, I understand chairs that don't repeat anything that you submitted before, but I submitted 5 pages of testimony back in June, and I'm guessing chance to read it because it answered a lot of the questions that I heard here tonight. And so, it didn't get read, but I wanted to give you a little background on it because my company has been there long before any of that development started. And that property that's there has been what it is now. In that person. Before I bought that property, because it is R15, I recognize the difficulty. Reached out to planning and zoning to get an opinion. They spoke to my appraiser who actually put it into the appraisal, saying that because the use had been consistent for so many years, it would basically be a simple administrative procedure to get the non-conforming use. That simple administrative procedure turned into 7.5 years of litigation that cost me several $100,000. Revalidated my use of property as it is. The front half of that side of the plot. If anyone had read my testimony, you'll see that it's literally split right down in the middle. My first one is. So by keeping everything C3, it means that it's confusion. And to clarify what I've heard with understanding on use, not conforming use, the non-conforming use that I do have on the front half.
Thank you, ma'am.
You have my 2 minutes to continue.
I represent the pumping community, and one of the things that I noticed is that you will distinguish between Benthicum and Brooklyn Park, but there's no distinction about pumping. We're on the Foster Plan and zoning map, we're right there where it says pumping. And I did not hear a specific recommendation for the 300 residents that live there in that community or the zoning for that community. Now, we do know that we are under threat of the developer corporations, land, buying and mining place back there. That's a threat to our community because we have what we suspect a lot of air pollution and water damage coming through the pumping community. So it hasn't been decided. I didn't know if that was in your purview to look at what's going to happen with the Belco Corporation, but I heard nothing about it in your presentation. And I want to thank you for the work that you have done, because you've done spectacular work. But we would like to be at least considered. If we sit on the map, then I don't understand how we're left out of all of the comments. We are not a subsidiary of Brooklyn Park, nor are we Brooklyn. We are Pumphrey, and it says so right here on your map that we were given from Public Planning and Zoning, no map, it says Pumphrey. And so, that's one of the things that I hope we can consider. And I noticed that you said there were 2 positive comments and a couple of negatives as to how we would recommend. But we would like to be considered also as a distinct community, as we've always been. We've been there since 1832.
I came in late, but are you going to recommend to change the zoning in Linthicum like Andover? Are you going to recommend that?
They voted.
Not going to answer the question?
Well, like I said, you came in late, so you did miss the discussion that we did have. We did place a vote for the workplace vote, which still has to be moved forward to the next.
You have to vote.
Yes.
It says SAC may reopen decisions. How can you do that when the majority of people who live here don't want that? I mean, where do you all live? I mean, it's like We all live here. We choose to live here. We like it the way it is. Let us decide if we want changes or not.
Not you. And it says that the SAC may reopen the decisions at the chair's discretion based on public comment. So those decisions can be reopened.
Yeah, thank you.
That's good. Like to address the man that's both in the back. Like, we did have a very in-depth conversation about that in our. But we did speak very in-depth.
We
And I
just,
find a summary of those online.
Find the video.
We didn't have a recording of our zoning discussions. And again, that's because there are so many side conversations going on and the recording wouldn't make a lot of sense. But we do have meeting notes from May 11th and May 15th. If you go to our Region 1 website, which is here at the bottom, aacounty.org, region/region 1. What else was I gonna say? For the light rail, again, there were no significant zoning changes for the Linthicum light rail station. It was planned land use and development policy area.
I believe that was the same as the Humphrey area as well. We did not speak on it again today, but we had very in-depth conversation at the last meeting, and we did go over that. So, in the interest of time, if you have anything else you'd like to.
Regarding the Harmons area, my name is David Abel. Plus acres of W2 zoning in that area along Railroad Avenue. I think I've heard this evening that that particular area is not going to be changed. Is that correct?
Right. Yes.
No changes, no.
It's recommended, right? So
Recommend, so what does that mean?
So again, the next step, when I can talk about next steps here on the next agenda item, is the planning advisory board. They receive all the comment that the SAC discussed. They'll receive all office planning and zoning's recommendations. They'll make their recommendation, and then it goes to county council, who has the authority to adopt a zoning amendment.
Yes, I joined, David, which he didn't mention who he was, which he's the mayor of our area. He is the Stone Store. And I am State Peppersburg, that's in the corner of Mercy and Telegraph Road. And, you know, by definition of W2, look it up, we're a nuisance. And we're a proud nuisance. And when I went around and I know Dave and Patty, she's also, as well, but owns property over there as well. We represent essential nuisance businesses in Arundel County. We are dogs barking at 5 a.m, all day long. We are the Stone Store doing stuff. We are traffic systems. We are garbage truck companies. So the idea of putting in residential next to us is a really bad idea. I appreciate it, and it's a Starbucks. I think everyone here loves dogs, we all do. But when they're barking all day, when you're on your Zoom call, that's not. And again, you know, Dave's been there, and there's nowhere else that he can go as the Stone Store in Anne Arundel County. So we appreciate that you guys have recognized us and put a face to the map, because on the map, it does look like great land that you could do something really cool with. But there are about 15 businesses there. I just celebrated 10 years and I have 35 employees. And the idea of going somewhere else, I can't. Because again, everyone loves dogs, but not in their area. So I appreciate, you know, everybody here, you know, recognizing us, and I guess we'll be taking it to the next steps to make sure again that, you know, you don't get rid of all of us, because we don't have anywhere else to go. We do represent about 1,000 different jobs that are there as well. And so just wanted to put the face, and, you know, Patty's here as well with Duncan Systems that does all that. So thank you.
A couple other comments from my time. Again, I think a good example of next, development is right next door to us where, Merit Properties has their location. We've had several problems with people next door moving in and then all of a sudden we don't fit their life. Keep it very, very professional. 2 or 3 people in life. Seems to be okay, but it is not a good mix.
Even in 30 years.
Just close to, I've been in the industry 52, business owner for 45. So experience in it, we have a good business and it's, it stays that way.
You know, thank you.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I know we're not supposed to piggyback on things that have been discussed, but I can't hold it any longer. Still on Belleville Road. I'm telling you, somebody, some committee, could do something about Belleville Road. Belleville Road has got so much traffic backed up every day. Every day. The ambulance can't get through. The delivery people can't get through. The emergency people can't get through. Nobody, everybody's overlooking Belleville Road, where Belleville Road is taking off that traffic and beating up on Belleville Road and all the houses that live there. I live in one. Cracks all over the place. And then when it rains, I got the runoff that's coming from the top all the way down. I wish you could see the trash that rolls in my yard from that. When we talk about runoff, you haven't seen runoff till you come in my yard and see all this runoff. And everybody's talking about everything else. Everything else, we are caught in the middle. From high roads, we are caught and we're being squeezed. I'm telling you, Belleville Road, somebody better do something or be more concerned about Belleville Road and all this traffic that Belleville Road is taking. Ever since that bridge came down, there's more traffic there than ever. And we're concerned with everything else but Belleville Road and Park. Somebody better look out. We better look out for each other. That's the problem. We don't look out for each other. It's mine, it's mine. It's mine, it's mine. It's yours, it's yours. That's the way we look at each other anymore. When I was coming up, we used to look out for each other. That is gone by the wayside. And I'm sure for the way that we are treating each other and our community. Thank you, ma'am.
I mean, I'm on Main Avenue, back to, I mean, same thing on Hanover Road. You wanna put more houses back there, it can't handle it. And also, like, there's a natural wetland in our yard. What happens to that? There's more houses that go back there.
Can I say one thing? Nobody's mentioned this at the schools, so there's no way that raising 4 kids, coming up through White Avenue. Just had one leave, middle school, I think there's 1,200 kids. Cool. And going from R1 to R2, I believe you said that it's not a big deal, but you're doubling. It is a big deal. Twice as many houses.
And handle it. They can't handle the kids they have now. That's what's happening in our public schools. We're late, we have to make public school, private school next year, because public school got so bad, of the overcrowding, there's so many kids. I don't think people realize, it's great school systems, but when you have way too many kids and not enough help, these teachers are being stretched. It's not good for the mental health of our public school system, or the people that provide our kids their service. It's not good.
Thank you. I'm gonna take one last comment and then we're gonna close the public comment.
Oh.
Y'all been good work. Been here this evening. Lord Donovan, I think the committee's done great work. I've been here for just about every meeting. I know y'all put a lot of time and effort into it. No one has considered the heat island effect, all this pavement and tree cutting and things like that. And I agree with everything that the audience has said. They're all good points.
But sooner or later, it got to stop, and that's, we got to play the fair play. You don't need to start thinking about this again. Actually, you needed to start thinking about it yesterday or a year ago, but anyway, that's it. Thank you, ma'am. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Let me put this in really quick. I'm not making this up. Watch your weather report. Our area is always hotter in our area, like it is in Baltimore. There can be big red clouds on the radar, and it should be raining like down here. There's not a drop fall. That's heat out there. There's your proof right there. Watch your weather. Thank you, ma'am. I'd like to thank everyone for attending. We're gonna reconvene the board and make a decision.
Well, who can we
Public comment is.
complain other than the Department of Zoning?
Yeah. They want to do.
We're on the first step of many other steps. This isn't like for them right now.
Okay.
Great, ready for next steps?
I have a question. I don't think.
We're recording you guys to maintain, the levels for our board's final discussion to help you guys. Thank you.
I need to go back and revisit this, but I don't feel comfortable with our decision we made on the Andover Road. I don't think we're doing these citizens a proper service. I would ask that you could go revisit that decision.
I agree. I do have another question.
I'm sorry, the public comment is over.
What can I talk about the video?
It's over, I'm sorry.
I have a couple. What's that gonna be?
You'll be able to submit further comment.
I have a simple question, if anybody wants to answer it.
Sir, we would like to proceed,
That the zoning is going to either stay or be changed, that's all I need to know.
And that's what we're talking about. If you give us a minute,
Well,
just give us a minute. If you listen,
sir.
that's
We've been doing this proceeding for many months, we have taken many, like hundreds of comments, we're volunteers. So we would like to proceed with our research.
Oh, I understand.
Thank you, sir.
yes.
Thank you.
Jim, I agree, so I make a motion that we revote.
Yeah, so I'm requesting a motion for.
I make a motion.
All in favor of a revote?
So.
Is anyone Yes, is anyone opposed to this revote? I'm not, all right, let's do it.
Can we have discussion first?
Yeah, please, can we see what we were looking at, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I definitely hear the community. I think that they certainly have valid concerns. I think that some of them are not concerns that R2 forces them to split the divisions. I think it's not. It doesn't force them to split divisions, it just gives the option to do so. But I don't think that, I think that it doesn't force anyone to change, put more houses on their property. It gives the option to do so. And also regarding wetlands, I mean, that's obviously not, that is something that is building a house, it still has to meet those requirements. So.
We oppose our will. Majority.
We're not imposing any.
Not opposing.
So I make a motion, we vote.
Well, we're having a discussion, okay? So we're making a recommendation to change the zoning from R1 to R2. No one's gonna come to anyone's property and say you have to subdivide this into two
Right.
properties.
That's where
The other thing is, if we look at like I asked Mark, we can pull it up, what's the historical zoning? Was it always R1? What happened to make it R1? I guarantee it was agricultural one time. Someone said, I don't want to ever change this. No one's gonna build a house on my farm. and now it's houses. We're looking to the future. This isn't gonna force anyone off their property, to sell their property, to do anything. It's a recommendation to try to accommodate the growth of the county as a whole in this one section.
Yeah, but I voted back then for R2. I had no idea they were all septic.
Yeah.
That information was a part of our discussion.
Right, well,
Now that we've got new info.
Nicole,
I think someone mentioned you know, if whatever construction comes, there are approvals from probably dozens of departments within Department of Public Works or building or zoning, plat, all that. If there's a concern, an environmental concern, a construction concern, if it's not addressed, it won't pass. If there will be requirements.
same thing with
That
the
need to be
education system, they also do study
Right.
for
Yes.
the education system as well, and the roads to be able to be equipped for that type of change. So there is a very rigorous process that, you know, would go through that. You know what I mean, to have to go through. So there's a lot of steps, a lot of things, just like you're saying, that make a whole of what makes a change.
To
in
do
development.
anything.
Right.
Can't just do it.
That's what I've been pretty much preaching. Any of these
Just give
changes.
more flexibility to.
Well, obviously, the community feels that this one step is scary. And it is gonna affect their whole lives. And quite honestly, I didn't know about septic. I'm a past general contractor. There's no way. And now that information about the 90-foot drop. So it actually makes no sense to even consider recommending R2. So,
But was there one application for one particular parcel of land to be R10 or something, and we said R2? And I thought that's what we voted for, was that particular parcel of land, not the whole community.
Surrounding development.
Because it was R2 up above.
Right.
And then this one particular applicant
It came down.
but I did not know it was touching everything else, right? So that brown, that tan part, I thought that's what the vote was on, give them R2.
no, it was everything within the rest.
No, that's not what I.
Everything except for that R2 space. above.
Yeah, that wasn't my understanding. I thought we're just focusing on that one piece where the application came in.
Right, and the Shipley Road, Forestry Road, that to the northeast, is that R2 next to that as well?
And that's a person who wants the opportunity to do that. And I thought that was our whole discussion.
Yeah, and this is the adopted section. R2 in this view.
Yeah.
This is like your color.
And there's one person that wanted to go R2 in the 10, is that right?
So it was, this individual wanted to go to R10.
Right, and we said R2 would be more appropriate.
That was one of the votes for that area as well as.
Yeah, I didn't know it impacted the others. I thought it was just that specific spot.
That's why that.
Is anyone from the committee, saying? So if we can just give a little bit more. Is there anyone that's on the board who has any additional information before we revote on this that they would like to share that other than what you just, you know, said that we want to know into this vote, revote?
No.
Okay. So the vote is going to be to, go with the, EZ's recommendation for R1 to revert to the recommended zoning back to R1. So, you're either in favor or not in favor of reverting to the recommended zoning back to R.
About the applicant, how does that fit into this?
He's in that. It's not gonna be like a little pop.
I'm gonna do a 2, not a 10 or 15, but I do not.
Keep it at R1.
You know? Keep working on it. I mean, at the end of the day. That's his, the discussion is for the applicant to have R2. And doing leaving the rest at the R1 discussion.
So say that again.
The little pop out up there that we had a long discussion about in the last.
No, yeah, that.
They pay it.
This one.
Application.
Okay,
That's the
so you'd like to hold a vote for just this application?
No, we'd like to hold a vote for the entire piece, but we would like to have that as a separate vote also.
Okay. So everything is red except for this area and this area.
No, I'm sorry, say that again.
So everything in the red except for
That.
this and this, which is already
That's
R2.
already R2.
Right. Leave whatever is in to
Okay.
come back to his little piece.
Okay,
You keep it R1.
Correct.
okay, so,
Except for that. Yeah. Correct.
okay, so you're.
Does everybody understand that?
Yes.
So we're gonna go
Why
move
are we, why are we excluding the pop out?
because they have a specific application and we don't wanna just, put it into the, what do you call it, the saying that's everybody else.
Yeah, that was honestly the only reason why we ever looked
Yeah,
at
that's
this.
gonna be, that was the application. And then the other areas are too, so we were trying to do consistency of neighboring zoning, and that was what initially kicked off.
Can you pull our original justification?
It was consistency.
Is the rest of that tan area next? Cleveland Road, Chipley Road, Horseview Road, is that?
Yeah, I believe it's pretty much.
It's pretty.
Yeah.
Surrounding area.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so that's the R2. 5.
Number, same justification, somewhere. Well,
Okay,
right,
Okay, so again, to clarify, the vote is for everything in the red except for this area to the north and this triangle.
correct. Yeah.
Okay, so R1 is what y'all are voting.
Yes.
So Nicole,
back. In favor.
you're in favor?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, R1 for everything, with the exception of that 10 piece.
Except for this one
Yeah.
piece and this.
Yep.
Yes, R1. Well,
Interface.
yes,
Yes.
Jennifer,
So. We're reverting back to R1 except for that tiny little piece.
except for this, that's.
That was already.
Yeah.
Eric,
Yes.
Penny,
Yes.
Sean, abstain. You can't.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Marilyn. Okay. So again, we have, and Cory abstain. Cory abstains. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And 12. 7, 8, right? So 8 out of 12 is your 2/3.
Yeah.
So we say greater than 2/3
Thank you.
needs to be it's the threshold. So
So,
it does
Thank
not
you very much.
meet that threshold.
and is that with the abstaining?
Yeah, shouldn't you count Sean as?
No, you can't count.
as 12?
What's that?
You can't count as
Are you including that as 12? Because there's.
So then you're at 80%.
80%.
So.
So the recommendation is to change the majority of this area to R1, or leave it as R1. And now you'd like to talk about CZR1 LHS 000,
Yes.
which is just this triangular process.
Yes,
Okay?
And
And
are we're looking to keep that R2, is that what we said? Good with that?
so it's currently R1. The recommendation is the applicant wants R10.
But no.
It's currently recommended R5.
I honestly, like, I don't know what R2 does for the applicant. They explained what they wanted to do with it. R2 doesn't assist them in any way, right? And we recommended R5 and we're able to carve out.
yeah, we did.
No, we carved out that to wait for it. We just, we're just.
He's still gonna have to go and apply and get permits and all of this stuff. R5 is, like, I think, a good compromise.
And what's across the street?
Across
Well,
the
it's
street.
actually. Then it's like that.
Show the other side.
Commercial.
And well, this is being redeveloped into, I think, multifamily.
Multifamily.
Like that whole section.
Development applications in.
That's
Just a development application.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And that's that one zoning that it's currently at, or one?
I'm just gonna verify.
Probably R1.
R1.
I think we recommend R5.
I mean,
Yeah, I do too. Given.
Yeah, and I,
So-
also looking at public comment, there were people who commented who were against the rezoning of the entire area, but were
Supportive of that particular, I recall that.
right.
But again, after speaking with folks, it wasn't clear that the support was for R10 for the application.
Right.
That it was support for potential subdivision at R1.
Gotcha.
Oh, yeah, when he was talking about. And but our original recommendation was R5. So just.
We would have to.
Any of that?
I thought R5 was the top.
Lots. We should have them individually.
Made it
They're all applying.
No, we popped. it.
Well, he would be able to get approximately 3 units. Or,
How big
yeah,
is
3
it?
units total. It's about 3 units.
We won't get.
Yeah, the way it's shaped.
Yeah, that's,
Tiny house.
That's
Too small in the town.
so, what do you say it would accommodate?
30%.
What was you saying it would accommodate? You won't get 3 acres. Not 10, not study and all that, but would it accommodate 5 or 5? Would it accommodate 5? No, so 2. Wait, what was that space, the 3 acres, would it accommodate an R5?
Yeah, it's just R1 doesn't. He doesn't.
Right, just wanted to make
Forget
sure.
enough.
Yeah. But he's still limited the amount he can develop there because of setbacks.
But it gives them flexibility.
Yeah.
I make a motion that we vote on the applicant's small area.
So again, the current recommendation from the SAC is R5 for, again, this triangular property. So if you don't want to change that recommendation, you don't need to vote.
Right, that's where I was at, because we already did that, right? Yeah, okay, then, yeah. Because we excluded it from the vote, and we already have that vote on it.
That's right.
That's why we got it.
Okay.
Okay. So again, just to cover ourselves, because they're now, because you did essentially amend, if you sort of open up your vote on the zoning map, I would like to just sort of button that back up again. So that's for motion to now recommend approval of your draft zoning map with this revision.
Making a motion to, amend the approval of the draft.
Can you ask for a motion?
Asking for a motion, I'm sorry, for the change.
I make a motion to do what she just said. I'm sorry. It's changed.
Second.
Is anybody opposed to this change? Thank you.
Okay, ready to move on to next steps?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except that we're gonna.
Okay, so again, this is the Stakeholder Advisory Committee's last meeting. Like we've mentioned, the next step in this process is the Planning Advisory Board. The next time that we meet with them, or the first time that we meet with them rather, is on September 18th. This meeting will be down in Annapolis at county offices. Again, as if you do go to this website here at the bottom, you'll find all these dates as well as some more information like the meeting time and location. At that meeting on September 18th, the Office of Planning and Zoning will brief the Planning Advisory Board on the general process. They should already be familiar with it because they've already now been through round one, but we'll provide an update on anything that may have changed during that process, as well as an overview, again, just for community members as well. We'll also present highlights then from the Region 1, 3, and 9 plans and zoning maps. October 2nd is then the Region 1 specific meeting. We'll just provide again, a brief highlight in case there are new members of the public that just need a high level overview of the plan and zoning, but we really do want to reserve most of that meeting for public hearing. Okay, so the public will be able to provide oral testimony at that meeting, and then the Planning Advisory Board will receive written testimony for 2 weeks until October 16th. Between October 16th and November 13th is when the Office of Planning and Zoning receives that, evaluates that testimony and then presents it back to the Planning Advisory Board, who makes their recommendation on, again, the plan as well as the draft zoning map. And then we don't have dates yet for county council, but again, as if you do follow or visit the website often, or if you do sign up for for updates, you'll get a notification of when the two bills, the one for the plan as well as the zoning, go to council. Again, what we're anticipating is either December or January, or could be February, but again, stay tuned for that. So those are the next steps. As they see, you all just have two more items, two more pieces of homework. Is we do want some feedback on this process. We did the same thing for Region 2. We just want to get an idea of how we're conducting these meetings, whether it's working for you all, whether you have enough information to make decisions, so that we can then tweak it when we, if necessary, when we get into our third round, which actually starts October, is our kickoff meeting with round 3. Okay. So if you could look for a survey in the next day or two, and we'll also be asking that you approve the meeting notes when they get drafted and sent around. And again, just so that we're not voting behind closed doors, we'll be doing this during via BCC. So again, we'll send you the notes, and then you just reply to Office of Planning and Zoning about whether you approve or not, so that we can finalize this meeting note and then put it up on the website for people to review. So I think that's it. Again, as if I were to just say a few words, I really do appreciate all your time and effort. Like I mentioned to Eric and Karen, we have prep meetings before these, and, you know, I understand volunteerism is typically low. So we always do appreciate when community members are able to share their time with us. You all have done a lot of work. I don't know if you can look back to October. I mean, we could all give you an honorary planning degree after that. Is I think now you can go to your community and tell people about their plan land use and their development policy areas and overlays and all that fun stuff. So again, as we do hope that you continue to stay engaged, coming to planning advisory board meetings, showing support or counsel and submitting testimony saying that you were part of this committee and any other opinions may want to share. So again, you know, from office planning and zoning, we sincerely thank you for your time serving on this committee. It wasn't easy. You've taken in a lot of public comment too. You're forward facing with the community. It's not always the easiest thing, but again, appreciate it.
Thank you.
For your help.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Can I ask a question before we adjourn? For the benefit of the audience here, I'll look for comment, obviously, but just to clarify, point, I think I heard some confusion during our discussion, but I wanted to bring it back to it. You talked about this breadcrumb, right? There's the opportunity along the way until the end for everyone to understand what the committee's position was and what the planning zoning's recommendation was the whole way through, right? So decisions are made based on everyone's input throughout the process and of course, public comment. Just want to make sure that's clear, that it's correct, right? Is that how it's run all the way through the end? Right. So the county understands, so that all of the people in the audience understand that for the comfort of being heard and understanding everyone's position at the table when decisions are made. Yeah, very good.
I guess the other thing I do want to mention, sorry, along this is, we've drafted up a summary of the public comments and that will be available out on the website shortly as well.
So guys, just don't forget to turn these back in tomorrow. And what the rest to keep. So-
And you can keep your name tags if you like, and let's get together for a picture.
Okay, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion.
Second.
Second.
Everybody opposed? One out, second.